Fleur du Cap award-winning script writing competition have been announced. Now in its 7th year, this competition is a project by the Imbewu Trust and aims to develop South Africa's contemporary theatre through this competition. Now it also offers writers the opportunity to develop their work and for their written play to be presented at a stage reading. But to tell us more, we joined in studio by Paul Griffiths, who is the co-founder of the Imbewu Trust. A very good morning to you, Paul, and
good
welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here.
Take us through what this Fleur du Cap writing competition is all about.
So, as you say, we started 7 years ago, and this competition was designed to be able to give a platform for writers to experiment with their new writing, but not to have it kind of just explored in isolation, but to actually give it to a director and to actors in a rehearsal room, and then to unpack the play in front of an audience and to see how the writing sits in an actor's mouth. And so this competition is to kind of highlight the new writers for the next generation of South African theatre.
Okay, so what is it that you want to achieve? I mean, what's the bigger goal?
So the bigger goal is obviously to give writers stimulation to write for theatre. So that's one of the driving forces of the competition. And then to give writers the opportunity to work through various stages of a draft process. And that's why we then hand that script to directors and to actors, so that the writers can actually see how the writing is in a rehearsal room rather than just in their imagination and on the page. And then that feedback is given to the writer with a view to developing the writing into further drafts of the play and ultimately production. So we're wanting to stimulate writers in order to increase local South African production.
From your own analysis and observation, what's the status or the level of script writing in our country?
It's interesting because a lot of the scripts that we get are very influenced by TV and film. It seems that a lot of writers aren't particularly used to writing for a theatrical context. And obviously there's a very different process when you're writing for a stage play, because you often have to be confined to one location. You're not necessarily having lots of shift changes. There needs to be a lot of potential for action, for physical action. And sometimes we find that because writers are used to referencing film and television, we get a lot of dialogue where you have actors kind of just sitting and chatting and unpacking a conversation. But that doesn't always have theatrical potential. So one of the things that we are observing and looking at ways in which we can kind of increase these references is to try and create more of a theatricality in our writing.
And what is it that you look out for?
Firstly, some kind of physical potential within the script. So there needs to be physical development, there needs to be a momentum in the play that keeps an audience who are sitting staring at one picture for say 40 minutes to an hour, some kind of internal movement that will keep their interest sustained. So we definitely look for that. And then we're looking for stories that are resonant and relevant. That kind of capture what it is that people are wanting to talk about. And then interesting, dramatic topics. Those are the things that we are looking for principally. So
it doesn't really matter whether it's indoors or an outdoor setting?
Absolutely. It can be in any setting. I mean, if I think the plays that we've shortlisted this year, one of them is happening in a bath. The other one is happening on the balcony of a flat. So you have these kind of two extremes. But so the entire one play plays out in a bathroom. So it can be in any situation, in any context. What's interesting is then what is the event that triggers that situation, and how exciting dramatically is that event.
What does this competition do to all writers, be it the aspiring writers and those who are far more experienced?
Do you know, I remember once speaking to a writing friend of mine, and he said there was nothing that motivated him more to write than a deadline. And one of the things that I think this platform does is it gives a deadline and a kind of impulse for writers to actually write the piece of work. We normally open our entries in March, and we have a closing date in July. And I think it gives people an opportunity of going, I'm writing for a particular event. Okay. I'm not just writing and exploring the idea, because that could get stuck in my imagination. I'm actually writing for a deadline and then for the possibility of that play being performed. And I think every writer wants to have their work performed. And ultimately, that's what this competition can provide.
What are some of the categories?
We actually only have, we don't have a category in terms of for entrance. So literally anyone can submit a play. There are a few criteria in terms of length and in terms of cast size, but there are no specific criteria for or category for the actual competition. And again, that shows in the short list of plays that we have this year. We have a comedy, we have a thriller, we have a kind of intimate domestic drama. So we have very different kinds of work going into the shortlist. Okay. Ultimately, what we're looking for is a quality of writing.
Right, right. Paul Griffiths, thank you so much, man.
Thank you for your time. Thank you very much, Sipiwe.
That's the co-founder of the Imbewu Trust, which will be holding the Fleur du Cap script writing competition. Well, it is 7:43, time for coffee.